and welcome back to another episode of the Real Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Jacob O'Connor. Real Conversations is a podcast for those dedicated to doing hard things and living a meaningful life. This belief is perhaps best encapsulated by a quote from the great Teddy Roosevelt. It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, nor where the doer of deeds could have done them better. No, the credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena. With that being said, welcome back to another episode of Real Conversations. Evan,
I'm back.
you're back and you're highly caffeinated.
Yeah, we're going on about 300 milligrams so far. For those of you who don't know, it's about 8 in the morning, so that's quite a bit.
Yeah, we have a little bit. If you're watching on video, I'd call it product placement. We've got First Form and our boys from the Super Coffee representing here in this episode. If you're watching,
They all make solid energy drink products. If you're looking for a good coffee replacement, Super Coffee is the way. If you just want some good old caffeine, First Form all day.
I do have to point out because that felt really adds.
This is not actual product placement. I'm just saying these are solid products.
Yeah, no. Evan, you ran this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
What was the event?
So I went down to Oklahoma and I did it was a 55-kilometer race. And those of you who live in normal numbers, that is about 36.4 miles. So 36.4 miles, had about 2,800 feet of elevation, and another ultramarathon in the books.
Yes, sir. And your first first place victory.
That's correct. Yeah, I ended up winning the whole race for the full ultramarathon. That was a pretty electric experience. I went into it not really knowing much about the course or the competition. Partway through the race, about mile 12, I realized that, I'm not just running today, I'm actually racing. So I stepped up my pace. I was a lot more aggressive than how I trained. There was a lot of pain, but I got it done, and it was incredible.
And that is a huge difference that you point out. I hadn't actually thought about that till you just said it. With the other ultramarathons that we'd done, with us being so novice to them, it was about finishing.
Exactly.
It wasn't about, okay, I'm going to push the pace, I'm going to get first place. That was a good little rhyme right there. But with this race, since it was a 60K, which is 36 miles, correct?
55K.
Sorry, 55K.
Super random.
But is it 36 miles?
Yeah.
Okay, so you knew that you could do that, which is kind of crazy to say. Like, to us, that's not that far anymore. And so the point where we're comfortable enough that you can push the pace and try and go pretty aggressively at it.
Yeah, it's about give or take 20 miles less than the last real run that we did. And so it was weird, like, this really isn't a big deal. This is half a day of running. But yeah, like you said, it gave me the freedom to be able to push it more than I usually do, which is cool.
Yep. And I did not participate in this one because it's intramural basketball season, and that is the primary focus right now. We were out to win the championship again. But how was doing a race like this without having a huge crew there to support? Because the last two, we had overwhelming support from our family. That was awesome.
Yeah.
How is this different?
Yeah, it was another great learning curve for me. So I was able to utilize a drop bag system. So we just leave whatever supplies we want at the start line. They brought it to the halfway point. So then once I ran to there, I was able to restock on stuff I needed. Like I grabbed some sunglasses, some more like gels and chews. And then I just took off again. It was a lot different than what I'm used to, but I liked it.
So you had to go 18 miles with everything you had in your camel pack. I thought there was aid stations that were closer with the drop bag.
There were aids, there were aid stations that were closer, but they didn't have my drop bag. It was kind of a weird setup. So I was able to refill water.
Yeah.
Grabbed like a donut from one of them because I can.
What were at the aid station? You said donut, water, but I mean, that first race that we did, they had everything.
Yeah, it wasn't as well set up for runners. So the main event of this was actually a bike race. There were probably a couple hundred bikers out there, which was really cool. So the aid stations had a lot of water. They had a lot of pop, which was strange.
Really?
Donuts, some cookies, a lot of trail mix, which is not really what I'm looking for when I'm running. The one halfway had a ton of like gels, electrolyte pills, but other than that, they were pretty scrawny.
So it sounds like someone went to Walmart and said, okay,
Yep.
what are some quick and easy
Yeah.
food items people can grab on the run?
Yeah. One of the nicest ones, it was called, I think, a pickle pop. I was expecting like it was a little bag, and I was expecting there to be some pickles in there. I was like, oh yeah, pickles, sodium. That sounds so good. So I grab it, tear it open, and it's literally just pickle juice. But at that point, I was like, oh, whatever, I don't care. So I just slammed it and it hit the spot so hard.
At what point in this run did you realize that you had a chance to get first place?
Yeah, it was probably mile 15 or something. Um, so I had been running with a guy for the first 8 miles. I knew that I thought that we were the first two. I thought that we were placed one and second currently. And at some point I broke off from him because he was going for a little bit of a slower pace. So I was running for about 8 miles thinking I was in first place. And then I looked ahead and there was another runner. So I was thoroughly confused. And then I slowly took his soul, implementing that David Goggins tactic. And then I was truly in first place and just powered out the rest.
How far did you have to maintain that first place position?
It was about 16 miles of first place. And there were a lot of turns, ups and downs. So I really had no idea how close they were, which was such a mind game. Like it was incredible. Yeah.
So you had called me during this run, and one of the things we had talked about was my advice to you, which you ended up not taking, which is fine because I probably would have done the same thing, is when you're in first place, you have someone behind you and you don't know where they are. And it's a mind game, like you said.
Yeah.
But what I've noticed is when you're in second place, you can draft off that person.
Mhm.
Like you talk about taking the souls. It's kind of a real thing when you're running. You
Oh,
see
yeah.
someone, you're like, no matter how hard it is, like you're slowly picking up on them and you know they're starting to feel that pressure. And that's like really demoralizing. So
Mhm.
my advice to you had been draft off him in second place, continue to follow him, take his soul slowly bit by bit, and then eventually overcome him and just destroy him.
Mhm.
And to which you said, screw that.
Yeah. Yeah. We were on the phone and he said, yeah, man, I would recommend just staying in second place, just behind him, let him have the pressure of being in first. And I called you back like a couple minutes later. I was like, dude, I'm in first. I dusted him.
Yeah. Evan goes, so I gave him that advice. He's like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Because I'm at an aid station. Let me call you back in a minute. Calls me back 3 minutes later. He's like, I don't know what happened, but I'm in first place.
Yeah. And from then on out, I slowed down quite a bit after that aid station, let the second place guy catch up. We talked a little bit. Like it's still a friendly sport.
But like you're playing mind games with them. Like it wasn't like you were friends. It was like you're making them think you're friends.
No, I think we were actually pretty friendly. So we ran together probably a half mile, and then I just took off and demoralized him, I think. He finished though. Everybody finished, which was really cool.
Mm-hmm. Well, how did it feel crossing that finish line in first place?
Man, that was incredible. I was pretty gassed, but I have that O'Connor trait of always having more in the tank to sprint across the finish line.
Oh, yeah.
So I came in hot, and just hearing them say like, he's our first place ultra marathon runner. Let's give it up for Evan O'Connor. Like that was so hype.
You never finish a race where you're walking or you're just like lightly jogging. There's always a little bit in that reserve.
Finish with intensity.
Always.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's kind of how my mile finished yesterday.
Yeah.
I think that was a bigger deal than your 55K.
Arguably. So I got to throw in one of the funnier things that actually my mom pointed out to me. I didn't even realize there was so much happening after the race. And she was like, do you realize that as soon as you crossed the finish line, the race host like brought you in and hugged you, and it was a guy wearing a kilt. So I can now say that I was hugged by a guy wearing a kilt.
Wait a second. Is this in your Instagram post?
It is.
Okay. We're going to go ahead and share screen right now if you guys are watching this. And I need to look at this kilt.
There were just so many emotions and all the dopamine going on right then that I could not focus on what was happening. In hindsight, I don't know if I would have hugged a guy wearing a kilt.
All right. Here we are.
Yeah, it should be the video.
All right, we're looking. Oh, look at Evan. There he is in the podium. Oh, sorry. It was that video.
Yep.
All right, so here's Evan running in. He's pushing. Crosses the finish line.
Yep,
and
there's
the
the
guy is
kilt.
wearing a kilt. What the heck?
Yep.
Did you say like, hey, I'm from Scotland or anything, or just had a kilt?
I don't know. This man just had a kilt on.
There was no theme with this race. It was just an Oklahoma ultramarathon.
Yeah. I don't know why he had a kilt on, but he did.
That's interesting. I want to talk a little bit about your caption here. I'll go ahead and read it for everyone that's listening. And then I would like you to speak a little bit more to this, because I think it kind of is been an evolution of our running process and the races we've done that kind of came into this. So Evan, which you can find him on Instagram at Evan__O'Connor.
I have DM'd the Evan_O'Connor. He does not want to give that username away.
Okay. He says, winning is fun, but a good win doesn't come without some sort of pain and or sacrifice. You know what? Losing also hurts a lot more. Both the mind and body yearn to be put up to an extreme challenge, to overcome the hurdles and setbacks and to emerge victorious. Choosing a life of mediocrity brings about far more pain than a dedicated, purposeful life. Choose your hard. Pushing yourself further constantly and winning is so contagious. To those of you who don't settle in whatever you do, physically, mentally, spiritually, etc., thank you. Keep on keeping on. You inspire me daily, and I genuinely mean that. Keep pushing. Push yourself, win, inspire others, admire the beauty of what you've created. Repeat. 36.4 miles, 2,300 feet of elevation gain, 6 hours and 55 minutes. My first place for my third ultra. And then, I commented, is it lonely at the top? Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. The part that I really was like dwelling on a lot during the run is that like winning is contagious. And it doesn't have to be like for the same event, but I've seen a lot of people in my life have really good wins in different ways. Like they talked about physically, spiritually, mentally, whatever. And just seeing somebody else win inspires you to win.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way, I kind of felt like it's my duty as a contributing member of society to push myself farther than I wanted to get into pain and to win, just to help show others what they can do if they set their mind to it.
Right. Well, I think one of the things is, and we've talked about this before, when you see someone else push a limit or a perceived barrier that you thought was like the wall that couldn't be pushed.
Mm-hmm.
For example, no one had ever ran a sub 4-minute mile until Roger Bannister did that like 100 or 200 years ago.
Yep.
And then that same year, I think 36 other people also did that. But when you look at the outliers like that, you see them on social media or whatever, they're so far outside of your circle and the people that you know that you almost think that's not possible. And you put them up on such a pedestal. And I feel like what you're kind of talking about is with you pushing yourself in your relative little community, your relative little circle,
Yeah.
it inspires those around you. And you have a duty, because when they say you doing more with your life and you pushing things that they didn't think were possible, they start to question, well, he's in my sphere of influence. Why can't I do those things?
Yeah. And they know me like I'm just a normal guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we're starting to see that too with the people in our family, like starting to run, push themselves, walk further, run further, bike further. It's been really cool to see over like the last 4 or 5 months.
That's why I put in that last part, like kind of stop and admire the beauty of what impact you're having. Yeah, because like you said, we've gotten a lot more of our family to start running and pushing themselves. That's just so cool to see. Like that makes me so happy.
Well, and it's one of my favorite ways to like hang out with people. Like you, John, and I did a heck of a workout yesterday. We're going to talk about that in detail, because the fact that you did it the day after your race, pretty impressive.
Yeah.
But we were all out there suffering together. And like we all walked away with a smile on our face, and we went into the ice bath and we were suffering with a smile on our face yet again. And I feel like those are some of the best memories that we've made, is doing hard things like that.
Yeah, hard experiences together creates such a strong bond.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't know, like in the summer, I'm a wildland firefighter. And so like as soon as we have that first fire of the season with all the guys on the crew, we're coming together. We don't know each other, 20 guys. But after that first really hard day, we're like so close. It's a bond that can never be broken. So that's kind of what you're saying. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Do hard things, build strong bonds.
What do you think? Because you talked about like the importance of winning. There's also definitely an importance of failure. But what do you think of the general statement of winning is everything?
Mm, that's a tricky one. Um, there's so much more, I think, to be learned from losing.
Mhm.
Um, I question. So the last ultra that we ran, we failed. It was that 100-miler attempt,
Mhm.
and yeah, we failed. And I wonder if I would have still won this race, or if I would have even signed up for this race if I hadn't failed that.
Do you think that failure is a part of winning? Because in my head, the statement winning is everything, that is encompassing the failure aspect.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't know, man. Yeah, I think you have to lose. You're not always going to lose,
Mhm.
but it can propel you so much farther than just winning.
Yeah. To me, the statement winning is everything is more about not being complacent with the failure.
Sure.
It's okay to fail. It's
Yeah.
going to happen. It's ridiculous not to expect to fail,
Hmm.
but you don't want to stay down. To me, winning is
Yeah.
everything. It's about getting up and still focusing on that goal,
Hmm.
going after it. Um, how are you feeling physically? You're 2 days out now. I feel like you got a bunch of lactic acid. How you doing?
Yeah. I'm sore. Moving. I don't move as fast as I should right now, but all things considered, um, between what I did on Saturday with that ultra, then the workout yesterday, my body is feeling incredibly good, which is like,
You
it's
looked pretty
so
good.
cool.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, once your body gets used to a certain type of like workout adaptation, it you recover so quickly, which is fascinating.
Well, we saw that with the 100-mile attempt.
Hmm.
It took like 24 hours to be pretty close to fully recovered. I feel like
Yeah.
we were moving really well. And after that first 50 that we did back in October, personally, it took me quite a few days to be moving pretty normally.
Yeah.
It,
Yeah. For the 50, it's probably solid 2 days before I was feeling like I could kind of freely move without limited motion.
mhm,
But for the 100, like it was basically the next day,
mhm.
which is so cool.
So why don't you talk them through what we did yesterday? And yeah, just go.
Yeah, so yesterday we were in the great town of Derby, Kansas.
Yep.
If you haven't been there, that's fine. um, so we went out for a 2-mile warm-up run, just nice like zone 2 pace, mostly promoting recovery, but also just warming up the body. And then we got to this track, beautiful track, incredible track, really nice turf. And
Evan is dumbfounded by the
it was
quality of this
incredible.
track.
I've never seen a track so beautiful. So Jacob went out and he wanted to get a timed mile in. He didn't think, I'm gonna share your story if you don't mind.
Go for it, dude.
He didn't think that he was gonna be able to get like anything incredible. He's been doing long distance runs, so he was thinking like 7-minute mile.
I'd be lucky if I could cross 7.
Yeah, and I was like, man, you can do better than that. So John was also there with us. We did the first lap, all of us together, and then I did the last lap with him. He ended up breaking 6, which is really good, like considering what mental limit he thought he had, and then he just pushed through that, which is so cool to see. So
Really helped having you guys out there for sure.
yeah, so John and I had like a solid fast half mile.
Mhm.
And then after that, we did a nice, what would you call like a track workout? I
Yeah,
don't know.
it's like a circuit.
Yeah. Um, so basically, we ran backwards virtually as fast as we could because your body can't really go that fast backwards.
We were on the football field just to kind of set the.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we ran backwards to the 50.
Mhm.
Once we hit that, we would turn around and sprint the last 50.
Mhm.
And then on the
Once you're in the end zone.
Okay, I was like, baseline, what is
Yeah,
it?
no, you're good.
Once we're in the end zone, my brain is not there. I need more caffeine.
Oh my gosh.
Once we were in the end zone, we did defensive slides the length of it.
Mhm.
And then we did that backwards run, sprint to the other end zone, and then defensive slides. Then we did 3 rounds of 10 push-ups, 15 leg lifts, and 15 air squats.
Yep.
Then we did that whole circuit 3 times, 4
Yep.
time.
Yeah. So this was pulling from my football days. We used to have to do that type of workout. It makes a rectangle. It goes the length or the perimeter of the field. Whenever you go backwards 50, you sprint 50, defensive slide. Now you're in the opposite corner. And then you do that again. You end up where you started. But Evan had the idea to add in the CrossFit, 3 rounds of CrossFit in the middle. And then we did that whole thing 3 times. So we
Mhm.
did 9 rounds of CrossFit with 3 lengths of the football field.
Yeah.
That was a pretty solid workout. And for you having just done an ultra marathon the day before, I saw no excuses, well, except for a little bit on the abs. I saw no excuses, and I saw you going just as hard as John and I were. And that was super cool to see how well you were performing.
Yeah, so I guess one of my toxic traits is that I don't know when to stop. I really shouldn't have been doing that. That's when injury comes. Like once your body is really tired already and you push yourself, especially doing like sprints, that's not a good setup. I wouldn't recommend it. Don't try this at home. But it was so fun. Like just mentally, I had so much energy and I knew that I wanted to keep pushing. And then after that, we had the 2 mile run back.
Yeah, that was a good one. And then we got back, and see, I love Sundays. Like if you look
Mhm.
at our Sunday yesterday, this is like my ideal Sunday. We woke up, went to church, and then we went to Derby and did a killer workout.
Mhm.
And then we got in the ice bath afterwards.
Yeah, it was a good one.
And that ice was thick.
Yeah. So yeah, let's talk about that in a minute.
I'll pull up the video while you talk.
Yeah, we before we started working out, we tried to get the ice bath ready so that when we got back, it was ready to roll. And there was a solid 6 inches of ice in the ice bath. And so we were able to like take a screwdriver and chisel it out by hitting the top of it with a hammer. So we broke it into a bunch of small pieces. Then we were just goofing around.
Yeah, if you're watching this on YouTube or Spotify, you'll see Evan with the hammer chiseling it right now.
Then we were able to take those huge pieces of ice out, throw them on the ground, break them up, and chuck them back in.
Track workout. And then here's us at the ice bath.
Yeah, it was a cold one.
Yeah. So I'm going to venture out here and say it was 4 to 6 inches thick, that ice.
I would say, yeah, at least.
Yeah. It was pretty thick.
It was cool.
We had John standing up on it, like jumping on it.
Yep.
Or yesterday, at least he was, and it wouldn't break or crack or anything. Because we wanted to take the ice bath yesterday and we couldn't get in. And so today we're like, okay, we have to make it happen. So Evan got the screwdriver and started hitting it.
Yep.
And we had to toss the pieces out so we could even fit in there. That was a top 5 ice bath for me in terms of water temperature.
I took up the hobby of trying to ice sculpt.
Oh yeah,
for a solid 10 minutes, and then it really did not pan out, and all of my ice just shattered. So that is not going to be my future career.
Evan started off. He goes, "Wow, I'm pretty good at this. I should sculpt ice." And he goes, "I'm gonna make a fish." And then he hit the fish one more time, and it completely shattered. He goes, "Actually, you know what? It's Sunday. I'm gonna make a cross." Hit it one more time. It shattered. He goes, "You know what? I think I'm gonna focus on making smaller pieces of ice."
Yep. Yeah. So that is not my future. If any of the listeners are really good at ice sculpting, kudos to you. I don't know how you do it.
Okay, Evan, I want you to talk a little bit.
Oh, I got to throw in this ice bath. It literally drew blood. It was so brutal.
Yeah, Evan. So we did 11 minutes in there, which according to Huberman is the right amount for 1 week. But as he goes to get up, there's so many chunks of ice floating there. They're so thick. He scraped his leg on one of them and was literally bleeding.
And I didn't realize it because my legs were very numb at the time. And yeah, one of the cool things, it actually took a while for there to like start being blood.
Yeah.
Just because the veins weren't really moving.
Vasoconstriction.
Vasoconstriction, my dudes.
Yeah. So Evan is super well versed, at least compared to me.
Moderately well versed.
Well, compared to me.
Sure.
In the world of like recovery, sports science. And so I want you to talk a little bit to ice bath, sauna, proper recovery, and those benefits.
Sure. I've got a couple notes here. So we're going to start with the basics of why would you want to take an ice bath, sauna, any deliberate extreme heat or cold exposure. Basically, you're going to boost recovery. You're going to increase the amount of dopamine, which is a like feel good chemical. So you're going to associate working out with feeling good. You're also going to reduce inflammation. And yeah, I mean, the list can go on and on, but that's some of the basics. So if you're just looking to get started, as Jacob said, the basic guideline for ice baths is 11 minutes of deliberate cold exposure per week. This doesn't necessarily have to be an ice bath. There are other forms like cryotherapy, which is expensive, so most people won't do that. You can just find a cold stream, whatever. Doesn't matter how cold it is, as long as you're getting uncomfortable. So that 11 minutes per week can be broken up really however you prefer. As we did this week, we only had access to an ice bath once. So we just did all 11 minutes right there, which will provide you more of a mental challenge, as you could imagine. But when I'm back home, I prefer to do like 3 4 minute sessions a week just to kind of keep that steady state of recovery going. And then for the sauna, you really want to figure out what your primary fitness goal is. If you're just looking for overall longevity and health, I'd recommend somewhere between 5 and 20 minutes of sauna 4 times a week at a temperature range of 180 to 210. If you really want to optimize growth hormone, which is what helps you grow, as the name implies, I would like to go for, if you can, 2 hours. You might have to work up to it, but for ideal growth hormone release, you're going to want to do 2 hours, and that can be in several different sessions throughout the day. And then in between those sessions, if you really want to like optimize recovery and growth, taking a 5 minute cold shower, ice bath, whatever you have access to in between, and then getting back in the sauna. Same temperature range of 180 to 210.
So one of the things that I remember specifically, we get a lot of our information from Andrew Huberman. He's got a podcast called Huberman Lab that you guys should check out if you're further interested in these topics. But I believe it was, if you are doing the sauna 3 to 7 times per week for duration of about 20 minutes a piece at least, you decrease the likelihood of dying from a cardiovascular event by 50%. Isn't that insane?
Yeah, that's 47%. Yeah,
It's okay.
Incredibly close.
Yeah.
Good work.
Like, to me, it's, unless, like Evan talked about, you're optimizing for growth hormone, and this goes across, I think, all ages. I think the study was pretty inclusive. Why would you not, if you have the time or the access to a sauna, why would you not do that? It's a 50% reduction. It's something that, I mean, that's heart failure, that's a heart attack, that's something that's super important to your survival.
Yeah. So even if you're not like, even if you don't really care about long-term health, you're going to feel so good. Your mental clarity in and a couple hours after the sauna is just through the roof. And one of my favorite reasons to sauna these days is you meet some really cool people in there, and the conversations you have, if you're deliberate with them, are just so beautiful.
One might say they're real conversations.
I see what you did.
I know. One of the things that we need to do sometime is take this podcast to a sauna or to an ice bath. We kind of talked about doing that yesterday. We didn't have the mics with us. It'd also be really hard to have good audio quality, but I think that would be like such a great conversation, because when you're in the ice bath, you have such a state of vulnerability that like you're willing to talk about whatever, just take your mind off the ice.
Yep.
And then when you're in the sauna, I believe there's a chemical that's increased or something that actually deepens the conversation. Can you speak more to that, maybe?
So I'm not, that is true. I don't remember what chemical it is.
Okay.
And shame on me for not knowing that.
You will not be invited back on.
Dang it. I'm looking through my notes to see if I have, so I can get invited, but I'm not seeing it, so that's a bummer. This might be the last one, guys.
Well, with this episode, this is your 4th time on the podcast. You have the most appearances on this podcast. Isn't that crazy?
Do I get like a trophy, handshake, something?
Well, I just keep thinking I need better friends and better contacts.
So true. So what I will do instead of answering what you asked is tell you something totally different that I think is relevant. So instead of getting in a traditional dry sauna, which a lot of people don't have access to, simply it's not in their town, it's too expensive, etc. You can also just get in like a really hot shower. A hot bath will do the trick, as long as it is uncomfortably hot but safe to do so. And then if you are taking the time to get intentionally hot, it's recommended to drink 16 ounces of water for every 10 minutes that you are in that extreme hot environment.
So if you are in the sauna for 2 hours, you're drinking a lot of water.
That's a lot of water, but you don't even really realize it because you're sweating out a lot of water.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'm the one that's ill-informed on this, but I always think it's funny when I get in the sauna and people are sitting there, they're sweating. They're like, oh my gosh, guys, I'm losing so much weight. I'm trying to put on weight. This is so counterproductive because isn't the only thing you're losing water weight?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, you need water.
Yeah. So you're going to replenish that anyways. You're not burning fat when you're in the sauna, correct?
So yes and no.
Okay.
When you're in the sauna, it's essentially mimicking like doing cardio.
Mhm.
Your your blood vessels dilate, your heart rate will elevate. So in a sense, it's like you're doing zone 2 cardio. But when you're in zone 2 cardio, you're burning about 70% carbs, um, give or take, and 25% fats and 5% of protein. And most of that is going to come from like muscle glycogen stored within muscles in your body. And fat, it's not just going to be fat from your body. Like you can't target where the fuel comes from. You can't be like, oh, I'm going to lose fat in my waist. That's not how it works. It's just a general fuel source. It can also be from foods that you ingested. What was the other part? I need more caffeine again, man.
No, you're good. You're just talking about kind of the benefits and different ways to recover. Stretching is a good one too. That's super important.
So I'd like to make one final point about sauna, if that's all right.
Dude, go for it.
So when you're in the sauna, you create an opioid endorphin in your brain, which this is what I was looking for earlier. So this will alleviate perceived pain. So that can also lead to like a better conversation, a more real conversation.
Does that increase the threshold for pain then?
I'm not sure long term. If it yeah, I'm not sure about that.
Interesting.
I'll look into it. On the contrary, though, we also create dynorphin, which is a chemical that creates a feeling of pain. And this is literally just, it's fake pain. So just push through it. So if you're feeling pain in the sauna while you're working out, whatever, it's literally just your brain tricking you out. So just push through it, ignore the pain.
I'm going to need a medical disclaimer. Evan is not a doctor. I am not a doctor. If you think you're going to faint, if you're pregnant, if you're on medication, whatever the case may be, you make your own call. I'm not getting sued for this one.
And please do not do drugs or drink any sort of alcohol before or in the sauna. That is very bad.
Unless you want to have a good time.
No.
Okay, we are going to start wrapping up because unfortunately I have to head to class here pretty soon, but we want to get an episode in for you guys. If you want like a part 2 to optimizing recovery, all things sports science, I think Evan and I could probably knock that out sometime soon. So why don't you guys go ahead and just send a DM to @real_conversations on Instagram. Evan, where can they find you if they want to connect, learn more, talk about recovery?
Yeah, it's going to be, my primary would be on Instagram, and that's just Evan, EVAN __ O'Connor, OCONNOR.
Between you and Grant Johnson, we're going to get some Instagram handles figured out.
Yep.
Can you believe he makes the smiley face out of it?
I loved it. He was like, it makes a smiley face, and that made me happy.
I know. I was like, I love Grant. That's so in his personality, but like verbally dictating that is so hard for people to understand. I'm on Instagram @the JacobOC. Okay, Evan, final words, close us out here.
Yeah. Okay. If you guys have any like specific request about recovery or fitness, I love reading research articles and really digging deep and finding some answers. So please send me a DM, message me, and I will do what I can to find you answers or just to bring it on to this podcast next time.
You're going to get a bunch of college kids sending you their homework.
Hey, I love it.
You're going to get a DM. It's going to say in 2 to 3 paragraphs, over 500 words. How would you describe this article, Evan?
Man, that's chat GPT right there.
Oh my gosh. Okay, that's awesome. And if you guys enjoyed this episode, please do share it. It helps us grow. It's been cool to see the numbers increase, but we're nowhere near where we need to be. So just click the little share button, send the link to someone else. I guarantee they'll love this podcast. Okay. Have a good one, guys.